During the Civil War, the Union blockaded the entrance to the Charleston, South Carolina harbor to keep the Confederates from importing supplies. One of the Union ships patrolling the harbor entrance was the USS New Ironsides. Gunfire from the New Ironsides had been devastating to Battery Wagner on Morris Island near Charleston. A reward was offered to anyone who could sink the Union ships blocking the harbor entrance. To earn a reward, David Ebo of the Cooper River Gunpowder Works was asked to build a vessel that could deliver a torpedo into the hull of the New Ironsides patrolling outside the bay. Ebo said that he would build a semi-submersible vessel and put in a steam engine to drive it. The explosive would be carried by means of a hollow iron shaft projecting about 14 feet ahead of the vessel and 6 or 7 feet below the surface. The torpedo would contain an explosive of 100 pounds of rifle powder. He was to name the vessel David after himself. On September 23rd, Confederate Lieutenant W.T. Glassell took over command of the David and was ordered to attack the enemy's fleet off Charleston Harbor. He was to destroy as many of the enemy's ships as possible. The pilot, Walker Cannon, and fireman James Sullivan completed an all-volunteer crew. On Monday evening, the 5th of October, 1863, a little after dark, the David left Charleston Wharf and let the ebb tide take her down the harbor. The vessel was ballasted so as to float deeply in the water. The area above the water level was painted a camouflaging bluish color. It traveled at 6 or 7 knots. The David proceeded down the main ship channel, passing Fort Sumter and continuing on by the enemy's ships and barges until arriving near the New Ironsides at 8:30 p.m. They waited another 30 minutes for the flood tide to pass. At 9 p.m., everything appeared favorable and everyone was eager to attack. As they approached to within 50 yards from the New Ironsides, they were spotted by an officer on the Ironside deck. He hailed the unknown vessel, loudly demanding, "What vessel is that?" Being now within 40 yards of the ship, with plenty of headway to carry the David forward, Lieutenant Glassell answered with a blast from a double-barrel shotgun. The officer fell to the deck and, while dying, ordered the crew to commence firing at the enemy vessel. The crew of the Union ship responded quickly with small arms fire, repeatedly striking the David but causing no damage to it. 2 minutes later, going full speed, the David hit the Ironsides with its spar torpedo below the water 15 feet from her stern post. The explosion created a column of water which nearly swamped the David with a force strong enough to extinguish its boiler fire. The David was left with no drive power. The David drifted beneath the bow of the New Ironsides, where continuous small arms fire from the crew above threatened their lives. The David's crew believed they were about to sink and jumped overboard, all hoping to be rescued by the very enemy ships they had successfully evaded on the way to press their attack. Lieutenant Glassell and Sullivan swam off in the direction of the enemy ships, disappearing into the dark sea. Glassell later wrote, "The enemy poured down upon us a hailstorm of rifle and pistol shots from the deck of the Ironsides along with the nearest monitor. Sometimes they struck very close to my head, but swimming for life, I soon disappeared from their sight and found myself all alone in the water. I hoped that with the assistance of the flood tide, I might be able to reach Fort Sumter, but a north wind was against me, and after I had been in the water more than an hour, I became numb with cold and nearly exhausted. Just then the lifeboat of a transport picked me up and found to their surprise that they had captured a rebel." Sullivan was also captured, but apparently was not interrogated by his captors. Walter Cannon, the pilot, remained with the David. Engineer Toombs, finding himself adrift after dark in enemy waters and fearing no quarter would be shown him, made a successful effort to re-enter the David. He managed to relight the fires and after a short time got up steam. Walker Cannon took the wheel, and the David once more passed by the enemy ships and steamed up the channel, coming at one time within 3 feet of a monitor. A gauntlet of continuous fire of small arms pursued them, as well as a bombardment of 2 11-inch guns from the New Ironsides. Later in November, a final report was issued on the damage done to the New Ironsides. Captain Rowan, commander of the New Ironsides, informed blockade commander Rear Admiral Dahlgren that the damage done by the torpedo was much more serious than first appeared. On March 6, 1864, the David attacked the USS Memphis in the North Edisto River. The torpedo misfired, and the Memphis then rammed the David, breaking off part of her smokestack. The David retreated up the river out of range of the guns on the uninjured Memphis, who then resumed her blockading assignment. David's last confirmed action came on April 18, 1864, when she tried to sink the USS Wabash. Alert lookouts on board the Wabash sighted David in time to avoid the attack. The Wabash opened fire on the David, but neither side suffered any damage. The ultimate fate of the CSS David is uncertain, but several torpedo vessels of this type fell into Union hands when Charleston was captured on February 18, 1865. The David may well have been among them. It is believed that she now lies buried somewhere under Tradd Street between the U.S. Coast Guard Station and Rutledge Avenue.